Delta basically took the same ideas as American and made it substantially worse. In today's video, we're looking at some changes that Delta's making and how it might affect you if you have an American Express card. If you travel often, this is probably negative, but if you only fly a few times a year, this might be a win. Big favor before we dive in is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. That way people that need to see this can see this. And if you know anyone else that's affected and you want to make sure they know what's going on, then share this with them. Pretty much a win-win. One of the big draws of the American Express Platinum card isn't just Centurion lounges, but access to Delta Sky Clubs when you're flying Delta. This pretty much gives people a second option, and a pretty good one, especially if you don't have a Centurion lounge in your main airport. If you compare it to other airlines like American and United, where you typically need to get cards like the JP Morgan Reserve or specific lounge cards. So cards like the Citi American Executive card or the Chase United Club card, but cards that you wouldn't get unless you really wanted those benefits and you're probably a super user. In contrast, Delta had a lot of the same people, whether it's buying memberships, having specific cards, or flying first in business within the airline or their partner program. In addition, they also had everyone that had the Platinum card that was also flying Delta. On the surface, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it added up. And we saw this in action with Delta lounges in airports like JFK and Atlanta, especially during busier times. Right now, we're seeing them address this pretty head-on. Starting February 1st, 2025, Platinum cards are only going to be allowed 6 visits per year, and then if you have an American Express Delta Reserve card, that's 10 visits per year. If you have the business versions of those cards, then it's the same 6 and 10. Also note that this is based off medallion year and not card member or calendar year. For Delta, their medallion year is February 1st until January 31st of the next year. So for example, February 1st, 2024 until January 31st, 2025. There are some strategies to get around this, but also some published ways to do it. For both the Platinum and the Delta Reserve and the business versions, if you spend $75,000 on the card annually, you're going to get unlimited access to the lounges for the current year and for the next year. Reminder that the Platinum card already has a similar $75K spend target in order to bring complimentary guests or free guests into the Centurion Lounge. If you or probably your business spends at that level for those cards, then it might make sense to do it on the Platinum or Platinum Business just because that just makes more sense and you're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. You still have a bit of time for these changes since they are not coming into effect until 2025, but there is another one that's coming up sooner. So if you book a basic economy ticket, then you're no longer going to be allowed in the Delta lounges starting January 1st, 2024. And this is regardless of if you have the Platinum card or any other premium card like the Delta Reserve. I'm currently in a weird spot because I have Delta Diamond status, meaning that I generally want to book main cabin and not basic economy anyways in order to get upgrades. So that's right now and that's fine, but they are making some pretty drastic changes to status and we'll talk about that in a second. And I might not have status in the future. In the long term, I might have to pay that premium to fly main cabin in order to get lounge access, which might make it not worthwhile, especially because most places I fly to have Centurion lounges. In that sense, next year, 2024, might be my last hurrah. There is one final lounge change, and it's going to affect people that have the American Express Delta Platinum and Delta Platinum business cards. Right now, you can pay $50 to enter the lounge if you have those cards. Starting January 1st, 2024, that's no longer the case. For them, this is another way to deal with overcrowding to make sure there's less people in the lounge. Back to the Platinum and Delta Reserve cards, there's a few other things to note. One big one is that you cannot gift your visits, so if you have 6 through the Platinum card, all of them have to be applied to yourself. I wish you could hand them out, but I guess that would cause problems. Number 2, if you have multiple cards, then you can stack your visits. If you have multiple cards that give you access, then those are going to be separate and you have a lot of visits. So for example, if you have the Platinum and the Delta Reserve, then that 6 plus 10 equals 16 visits. If you have the Platinum and the Platinum Business, 6 plus 6 is 12 visits. If you have multiple flavors of the Platinum card, then the same thing should apply. Also, if you are unaware of the other flavors or variants, we have a full video from a few weeks back that might be worth watching. Okay, so what should you do on your end? One of the good things is that the major changes are not coming into play until 2025, so we have the whole 2024 to enjoy it. My fear though is that 2024 might be the golden year for a lot of card members and we might see things change in 2025. Outside of the whole Delta thing, another big factor is that Canada just increased the annual fee for their Platinum cards up to $7.99. We'll talk about it in a second, but they are due for another annual fee increase. To be fair, we'll probably get more credits to account for the annual fee, but you might not like the credits. You can kind of already see this by comparing the personal and the business Platinum cards. So right now, the personal one has a ton of easy to use credits like Uber, hotel credit, and airline incidental, digital entertainment, and also SATs. For a lot of people, that's going to get you close to 700. In contrast, the Platinum Business, even for someone like me, feels a lot tougher. So Dell's pretty easy, but I haven't used the Indeed credit. They also have credits like the Adobe one, which sounds good on paper, but it only applies for the business plan, which is a lot more expensive. So for example, I use Adobe for editing, but I can't use this credit. If you're considering the Platinum card, I'd run the numbers. If you Google Ask Savvy Platinum worth it, it should pop up. The calculator allows you to adjust your numbers for your situation so that it's personal to you. Also, if you are going for the Platinum, I'd check if you have an elevated offer. One of the easiest ways to see if you're targeted is going to be Card Match. Google Card Match Ask Savvy, and we have a whole blog post walking through it. I'll also link it down below. The reason I think American Express would increase the annual fee in 2025 is because if they keep an upgrade schedule like Apple, then it makes sense. So back in 2017, they increased it from $450 to $550. 4 years later, in 2021, it went from $550 to $695. 4 years later would be 2025, and that's pretty good timing. When you're thinking about cards, you want to be strategic and map it out properly, but you do want to be pretty aggressive. If you want to learn about cards, whether this one or pretty much any other card out there, and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, asksavvy.com, and also down below in the description box. As always, make sure the links are competitive, but otherwise, it is a huge way to support the channel and these videos, so thank you guys in advance. Okay, but taking a step back, why is all of this happening? The reason is because a lot of US airlines make a ton of money from these loyalty points and from working with the banks. The joke in the industry is that airlines are pretty much banks. And in fact, most of them make more money by selling points than by actually flying. If you're familiar with McDonald's, it's pretty much the same idea. If you didn't know, McDonald's doesn't make most of their money from flipping burgers. If anything, they're more of a real estate company due to their business model. For Delta, their version of this is extremely lucrative. Delta makes about $7 billion annually, so every year, from their partnership with American Express. This includes selling miles, their brand IP and stuff, and also parts of swipe fees. Every time you use one of their cards, American Express gets a cut of it, but also Delta. Okay, great, but how much money is possibly spent on Delta cards? In late 2023, the CEO revealed that it's about 1% of the US GDP. And even he acknowledges that these are some crazy big numbers. These aren't American Express cards, but specifically Delta American Express cards. If anything, they probably want to grow this number, and that might be why they're also changing how status works. Starting January 1st, 2024, they're going to get rid of MQMs and also MQSs. MQMs pretty much map to miles flown, while MQSs or segments are flights taken. They're simplifying status, but it's not really what it seems. On the surface, it makes a ton of sense. If you're someone that's new to credit cards and points, and even if you already know the bank side, the airline and hotel side can be super confusing. So for example, if you want platinum status, you need 75K MQMs or 100 MQSs, 12,000 MQDs, or the MQD waiver. It's a lot of very specific terminology. American Airlines simplified the whole system with something called loyalty points. So for example, you need 40,000 loyalty points in order to get gold status, which is their starting status. The benefit of the American Airlines system is that it's super straightforward. For the most part, you're getting one loyalty point for every dollar you spend on one of their cards. Even if there are other multipliers, they don't really come into play because it's the base earn rate. You also get points for flying, and it's based off your level and how much you spend. If you have EXP status and you spend a ton on flights, then you're getting a ton of points. Loyalty points was a pretty controversial program when they first launched, but right now it feels pretty good. The reason is because you can earn status from flying if you want to, and you can also spend your way to status. For example, if you're a business owner and you put a ton of spend on your card anyways, then 125,000 gets you Platinum Pro, arguably the sweet spot. And then if you want to spend 200K on the card, that gets you EXP. Delta pretty much took the same idea, but made it substantially worse. Starting January 1st, 2024, everything will be based off MQDs. They've also changed how many MQDs you need in order to get status. Okay, but how do you get these MQDs? If you're flying, you're getting one MQD for every dollar spent on Delta flights. You also get one MQD per dollar spent on Delta vacations and rental cars and hotels booked through Delta. If you have one of their credit cards, you get one MQD for every $20 you spend on the American Express Delta Platinum and Delta Platinum Business. The Delta Reserve and Delta Reserve Business are a bit better at one MQD for every $10 spent. You still can't get MQDs by flying with partner airlines within SkyTeam such as Air France and KLM. This is going to be based off fare class and distance flown. Okay, that's a ton of numbers, but how many MQDs do you need for status? If you want silver status, it's 6,000, gold is 12,000, platinum is 18,000, and diamond is 35,000. For a lot of people, I would say that gold and platinum are probably the sweet spots. Okay, but what if you want to fly your way to status? For silver status, you would need to spend 6,000 on Delta flights or through Delta vacations and their other partner stuff like car rentals and hotels. Gold is 12,000, platinum is 18, and diamond is 35,000. Reminder that this is per year and you have to kind of keep doing it. It's not one of those things that you earn and then you keep forever. As a deal seeker, I fly a ton of Delta and also SkyTeam, but I'm also finding deals and I tend to fly long distances for pretty cheap. Maybe that ends up being a weird sweet spot for partners, but I have my doubts. What about business owners who spend a ton on their cards? One of the old tactics was to spend your way to status, but I'm not sure how practical that is moving forwards. So for example, if you want to get silver status, you're spending $60,000 on the Delta Reserve card or over $120,000 on the Delta Platinum. For gold, it's $120,000 on the Delta Reserve, Platinum $180,000, and Diamond $350,000. And then all the Delta Platinum numbers are doubled. Right now, based off how the system currently works, you can pretty much spend your way to status with about $240K. That's via the status boost with the cards and if you hit pretty much all of them. With the new system, you're looking at about $350K, old system $240K, that's a $110,000 difference, or about a 45.8% increase in the amount of spend you would need in order to purely spend 2 status. And to be fair, it makes complete sense given their goal of weeding out the rings and just having less people of status. My question though is whether it makes it too difficult and maybe some people that would have gone for it are now otherwise ignoring it. I'm guessing based off their data, they have a lot of whales that spend a ton anyways, so it doesn't matter. At the same time, if you have less people with status, then earning status becomes more valuable because it's more useful. Upgrades are great, but if everyone has status, then it's going to be harder to get upgrades, meaning that the benefits are less useful. Okay, so with all of this happening, what's the best game plan? For the lounge side, as weird as it sounds, if you're someone that doesn't travel that much, then this might be a win. If you normally visit 6 or less times, then you're going to run into less people and it'll be emptier and nicer. If you travel a ton, then it depends on if you have high spend or if you're willing to get multiple platinum cards. For example, I can use most of the platinum credits and it makes sense for me, but that's not everyone. In terms of airline status, it's a bit tough now. So Mandy and I flew SkyTeam a lot, but maybe not so much in the future. We ended up using credit cards as a top-off mechanism for the MQD waiver and also for additional MQMs. Given all of this and the change and how kind of aggressive it is to now get status, I'm probably going to move towards American because that one seems like the best. Probably fly and then spend my way to Platinum Pro, which gets us One World Emerald status. Within One World, Emerald is the top status and gets you access to first and business class lounges when you're flying one of these One World airlines. So theoretically, you can be flying economy and go into the first class lounge. We typically go to Hong Kong 2 to 3 times a year and Asia maybe 3 to 6 times, just depending on what's going on. I definitely wouldn't mind chilling at the Cathay Pacific First Class Lounge in Hong Kong and hanging out in the cabanas before my flights. On the flip side, Delta is with SkyTeam and I find that their partners are a little bit weaker. I guess there's Air France and KLM, but a lot of the other lounges you can get into tend to be Party Pass lounges. One World probably has the best lounges and harder ones to get into, while the SkyTeam ones are Party Pass. Main takeaway, we were debating a switch anyways, and this might push us over the edge, but I'd love to hear what you guys are doing and how you're thinking about this. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, asksabby.com, and also down below in the description box. If you made it to this point in the video, then leave a plane emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. A few questions for you guys. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the lounge change? Are you happy with the 6 limit rule, or is it a bad thing? Number 2, what's your game plan for that? Does it not affect you? Are you getting 2 cards? What are you doing? Number 3, status. How are you thinking about that? Does it not affect you? And yeah, do you think it's a smart move or dumb move? Let me and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favor, give this a thumbs up, share this with a friend, but otherwise hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time.